Severance Season 2 Episode 9 has uneasy alliances, smashed childhood dreams, rich weirdos, and heartbreaking love story goodbyes. Baby, come back! Hey everyone, you know who I am, Any Jared B, and it's breakdown time. Unfortunately, since the numbers are not moving down here, the Melon Party was canceled due to lack of hustle. Told to deal with it. But I won't let that ruin your time, so let's get into everything in Severance Episode 9. This episode moves. I felt like I blinked and everything was over, very much feeling like a nice appetizer for what's to be a massive 7-course meal in the finale. I'm all over the place with this breakdown, so bear with me, as everyone at Lumen is freaking out that Mark Scout is not at work. The numbers ain't moving. A funny bit of workplace satire showing how, when certain employees take a sick day, basically the whole system is a standstill. Mark and Devin are continuing from the final Miss Cobell phone call in Episode 8, teaming up with Cobell as we find out the, quote, something else plan mentioned by Devin is in fact heading to the Demona birthing cabins to talk with Mark's innie. I feel like a silly little goose because I did not theorize this at all, despite Occam's razor literally spelling it out from Devin's conversations with Mark and Ragabi in Episodes 6 and 7.
Do you remember the rich lady from baby camp, the one I kind of had a crush on? I was thinking.
There's an any cabin. Technically it's a cottage where severed people become their ennies. And there was this woman.
Demona birthing retreat.
I guess I thought he was fully reintegrated, rather it takes time. The vibe of this episode is like a mob movie thriller with differing allegiances going after the greater enemy, aka Lumen, with Cobell meeting up with the pair and giving them an ominous warning about Gemma's fate, dependent on whether or not Mark has finished the mysterious Cold Harbor file.
And if you've completed it, she's already dead.
With blunt revelation, it lends even more evidence to the theory that Cold Harbor is Gemma experiencing some sort of death event. Whether it be a terrible miscarriage again, or her reliving her car accident, with my money being more on the car accident event. This unpleasant event blends in with the other unfavorable scenarios that Gemma was exposed to. For example, endlessly writing thank you notes and dental cleanings, with death being the most drastic, unpleasant event. Because, she dies. We don't entirely know the science behind all of this, but Lumen and the Watchers probably need data on how Gemma's brain reacts to the despair of dying to fully complete their severance chip agenda. The suffocating or drowning question back in Episode 7 lends a smidge more evidence that the car accident will be in some sort of a water, aka Cold Harbor.
If you were caught in a mudslide, would you be more afraid of suffocating or drowning? Drowning.
Not to mention, it's assumed Cobell originally developed the severance chip as a way for her mother to bypass chronic pain in her final years of life. Cobell tells Mark to call Milchick. I'll talk about this a little bit later in the breakdown, as the three just wait. As dusk hits, time for some Lumen spy shenanigans. Cobell and Devin hide Mark in the bed of a Hampton's truck, rolling up to the Demona birthing retreat that was originally introduced in Season 1, Episode 5. I absolutely love the dark suspense in the musical score here as they pull up. So many subtle details can be extracted from the brief exchanges between Cobell and the gate guard. Cobell stating Devin is one of James's, meaning that either James is out there clubbing all night, swiping endlessly on dating apps, shooting ropes, looking for prime candidates to carry his seed.
I traveled 500 miles to give you my seed!
Of Keir Egan to birth essentially a superior race. This is at the extreme end, but ties in with real-world examples coming out of World War II and Germany's idea for an Aryan race, or even real-life billionaires having countless children to carry on their own legacy. The other interpretation could solely be people of power, like Gabby Arteta being the wife of a pro-severance politician back in Season 1, and don't want to deal with the agony of childbirth. The security guard is a bit hesitant to really let them through, as Cobell gives her a coded message of Ms. Marsha White, 9th floor. I'm sure pure nonsense to many viewers, as this is where this week's episode title comes into play. The After Hours being the title of Season 1, Episode 34 of The Twilight Zone. I briefly touched on this last week in our Episode 8 breakdown. In this episode, it follows a woman who has a bunch of weird interactions at a department store full of products, then going to an abandoned department on the 9th floor, as we discover this woman is actually a mannequin and is granted human form for 1 month out of the year, until she has to return as a mannequin. These exchanges are no doubt coded messages, as they are direct quotes from that episode.
Miss Marshall White, 9th floor. Specialties department. I'm looking for a gold symbol.
Miss Marshall White on the 9th floor. Specialties department, looking for a gold thimble.
The themes of this particular Twilight Zone episode shed a light on identity, what makes someone truly human, and whether or not humans are in fact what they believe they are. As you can see, this perfectly ties in with the change from Outie Mark to Any Mark, a persona that theoretically was trapped to the confines of the severed floor, but is now a real boy in a completely foreign world, i.e. the birthing retreat with Devin and Cobell. Any Mark even briefly panics, which would have led to him, endlessly going in and out of the revolving door that we saw Helly do back in Season 1, Episode 1. The painting behind Devin looks like one of Myler Lago's Time Rings collages, giving a hint it's just a matter of time before Any Mark, Devin, and Cobell know the whole picture of what is really going on at Lumen. Ascending the stairs shows another Keir portrait, looking very similar to the others that we've seen previously, as things end with Mark facing off with Cobell, stating, "She's alive." Now remember, this is the second time Any Mark has seen fire, with fire having a spiritual meaning of self-discovery, growth, enlightenment, showing everyone in this room will be changed with the information that is revealed about Gemma, Cold Harbor, Lumen, and Keir's goals. Or at least, I hope so. Theory-wise, it feels like Episode 10's title of Cold Harbor is going to be the holy back on the severed floor Gemma rescue mission we've all been waiting for. Now, this episode took, obviously, inspiration from the Twilight Zone Episode 34, The After Hours. Coincidentally, or not at all because it's Severance and the writers are hella smart, Episode 35 of The Twilight Zone is titled The Mighty Casey, Gemma, aka Miss Casey. Are we going to see Gemma attempt an escape, with my best guess being one of the hatchets that O&D printed back in Season 1 is involved?
Last week's outfit had more of an aggressive feel.
The hatchets weren't aggressive.
Shh. The old Chekhov's hatchet is right there waiting for its payoff. I'll also add that the Mighty Casey Twilight Zone episode later reveals that this Casey character, who is a left-handed pitcher, is actually a robot.
What?
So heck, Gemma could be a robot, but then we're getting way too in the weeds with things. I think the robot thing is a massive stretch. Heading over to the George household, Gretchen is caught in a throuple situation with Dylan's Any and Outie, finally coming clean about stealing some kisses from Any Dylan, and like most viewers would be, Dylan is pissed. Rightfully so, because theoretically this is cheating. You gotta pick peanut butter or jelly, you can't have both. Unless you buy that nasty goober stuff. Did people actually buy that? Anyway, this scenario is your classic man of the house feels pressure to provide for his family. In doing so, burns himself out, therefore becomes distant from his loved one, who then finds comfort in something that feels a little bit familiar, and cheating ensues. It's a trope that's far too familiar and boils down to one of Severance's overall themes: work-life balance. Small details in this quick scene show more evidence Gretchen works as a 911 dispatcher for the town of Keir, so she may have a sinister side to her now, knowing that Lumen is theoretically kidnapping people around Keir. And the cartoon playing on the television is the first ever colored cartoon television series, 1957's Colonel Bleep, specifically Season 1, Episode 25, titled The Killer Whale. I've talked about the two previous cartoons and the deeper symbolism in those episodes. However, this one doesn't seem to have much really tying to anything event-wise in Severance. The only thing may be that the cartoon takes place after the first nuclear explosion, having a ripple effect alerting aliens in outer space. So anyone on the Egan's are aliens theory train, Good for you. With Gretchen's guilt, she obviously has to break up with any Dylan, which is such a weird, heartbreaking scene because Gretchen is the literal best thing that has ever happened to any Dylan G. Ain't no pencil erasers getting him 6 to midnight like Gretchen. So her breaking up with him and denying his little makeshift proposal is the worst thing that has ever emotionally happened to him. The design of the ring is perfect, half and half colored, showing any Dylan is only half of the full Dylan. He can't afford a traditional diamond ring on the severed floor, so instead there's diamond little cutouts on the ring. Now this is your classic Romeo and Juliet situation where Romeo is forbidden to see Juliet by the Capulets, aka banishment. Romeo responds that death is preferable to banishment from Juliet. So with any Dylan unable to see his Juliet, Gretchen in this case, he would rather die than live with the pain of longing. Looking ahead, we know Romeo's irrational thinking was not the ideal way to handle his predicament, where any Dylan is doing the same, saying F this place, filling out a resignation request, and theoretically ending his own life at the end of this episode. I mean, the framing of his head over top one of the heads in the Keir portrait is brilliant, and this is the end of any Dylan G for now. Another lost love storyline is Bert and Irving. Picking up the mob movie identity, Bert has broken into Irving's apartment, reading through all of his hidden documents. These were discovered by Mr. Drummond back in episode 6, I believe, and this information was probably relayed to Bert. Luckily, all of Irving's elevator paintings have been tossed, so Bert doesn't get a whiff of that bit of information that Irving knows. We don't entirely know Bert's official title at Lumen, but scoffs at Irving referring to him as a goon. We know Drummond has the enforcer job title, so it seems Bert is something a little bit else, something different. A delivery type guy, as it seems he delivers problems that tend to disappear, persuading Irving to get in the car, let's go for a ride. And anyone who has watched a Scorsese movie knows that that is not going to end well for Irving. Or at least that's probably what the original plan was to be. Drive Irving to the middle of nowhere, get the shovel out of the trunk, and have him start digging. But Bert's had a change of heart, leaning into that innocent part of him down on the severed floor and saving the one he loves. Honestly, to me, it is quite a change in character from their dinner party interactions, but Bert knows this is one of those moments to do the right thing. Whether or not he's getting into heaven, actually, he has to save Irving, which entails sending him on a train into the horizon, unable to know where Irving gets off and what he really does after that. It seems love may in fact transcend Severance, as notes of their theme sound in the background musical score.
I want to remember it.
I come here sometimes.
Irving wants to be with Bert. It's the first time he's ever felt love, mirroring the interactions from season 1, this time with Irving attempting to make the first move. Having never been loved, unsure if he was ready, now he is. He wants Bert's love.
I'm truly sorry. I'm just not ready. I want to have it. Loving. I'm ready.
It's all a what-if scenario. Timing of love is a cruel biatch sometimes, as Bert sends Irving off the same way he did with his innie.
Bon voyage. Buddy.
Good job, buddy. Bon voyage.
Classic train station loved one goodbye for the pair, as it appears Irving is off into the unknown territory, so we'll probably have to wait and see where and what Irving was really up to in Season 3. Over to Miss Wong, we learn her first name is Eustace, deriving from Greek for fruitful person or someone producing many offspring. I don't want to get too in the weeds with this, but this could allude to that she's one of James's quote from Cobell later at the birthing cabins. Potentially she's a prime candidate to further Egan's offspring?
Yeah.
It's all a wild guess, as she's awarded the same James Egan Wintertide Fellowship Bust Award that Cobell was awarded, learning even though her time at Lumen during the fellowship isn't technically over, she's being shipped off to the Gunnell Egan Empathy Center in Svalbard. New Egan drop, people! Woo! There's a few things to break down just from these couple of sentences. Basically, Miss Wong is leaving her parents' care to head off to what I assume is an Egan-run boarding school focusing on empathy, something that seemed to be lacking in her training. For example, not seeing the innies as real people, but she's working on it, giving Dylan G her regards after he turns in his resignation. Gunnel comes from Old Norse origins, meaning battle maid, meaning that she's both serving Kier and maybe a soldier for the cause too. Potentially this empathy school is actually the opposite and is eliminating her empathy, similar to Cobell's kind of colder approach, and Ragabi referring to Cobell as a soldier. And where she's going is Svalbard, an island cluster north of Norway in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Secluded island in the middle of nowhere does not spell good things for anyone. And surprisingly, after a little bit deeper diving, I discovered Svalbard is home of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a vault housing millions of plant and crop seeds in case of extinction, nuclear war, and so forth. This is interesting because it has secret Lumen facility written all over it, with previous Season 2 episodes hinting at real-world conspiracies like the Montauk Project and Montauk Monster. This facility also has a conspiracy surrounding it, ranging from a bunker for billionaires for the end times, or that it was a top-secret NATO facility housing a global eugenics projects, tying back to Lumen resurrecting Kier and creating a so-called superior race. Anything and everything is possible in Severance, as Miss Wong now has to eliminate her childish folly by smashing the only bit of joy that she seems to have on the severed floor, her little bubble game. It's not surprisingly that the bubbler is missing yellow hoops, resembling Frolic. This pseudo-religious Lumen ceremony mirrors real-life ceremonies like Jewish bar mitzvahs or Catholic confirmations, showing Miss Wong is now an adult and needs to act like one as she boards the Lumen shuttle. I think the way that these three, Dylan, Irving, and Miss Wong, their stories all interweave at this moment, shows each of them going off into uncharted territory, and personally, I think that this is the end of the three of them for this season. My guess is that the finale, which is rumored to be a whopping 75 minutes long, so strap in, is probably going to be Mark, Gemma, Helly, and Lumen-centric. Milchick continues to be caught in the worst management position ever, being berated because his star employee isn't at work, so theoretically, Cold Harbor is at a standstill. Helly then absolutely dunks on him, saying he's only Cobell's replacement. He doesn't really have any power here.
Leave it open.
Open or closed?
Both.
I'll just...
This in turn, though, causes him to stand up for himself when talking with Drummond, and this was the most satisfying thing Milchick has done this whole season, like, chef's kiss.
Devour feculence. It means eat shit.
This sense of self again allows Milchick to be kinder on Mark when the two have a chat on the phone, with this being such a familiar conversation in corporate America between employee and employer. Like, dude, I just need a day, work sucks. Luckily, Milchick sides with him after glancing at his iceberg wall art, maybe telling him that he only needs to know the tip of Mark's situation rather than, a manager all up in your business asking a bajillion questions. I have a feeling whatever the finale has in store, Milchick is siding with Mark and Cobell's team. As we round out this episode, we get interesting moments from both Helena and Helly. Firstly, Helena and Jaime live in a massive compound close to the Lumen corporate building. Indoor pool, stupidly large living room, everything. It seems these moments are pointing to balance, both on the egg plate and the hexagonal pool clock with hexagons symbolizing balance and harmony. Helly has a boiled egg for breakfast that's
coveted as fuck.
Initially separating it in half, symbolizing our innies and outies from the severance procedure, while continuing to split it into 6 pieces, potentially tying back to Gemma and Lumen's severance goals, because if you remember, Gemma was forced to see 6 different rooms back in episode 7. They may be testing the chip's limits, or rather maybe 6 innies is the maximum they are shooting for. 6 sides of a hexagon, 6 egg slices. On the plate is a mid-19th century design showcasing 3 different children, with the central one being pulled in 2 different directions, one wearing red while the other is wearing blue, symbolizing our innie and outie once again. James wishes Helena ate her eggs raw, which is a heck of an out-of-pocket statement until you remember back to what Keir Egan's favorite breakfast was.
You know he used to drink 3 raw eggs and milk each morning.
I've heard.
His favorite breakfast.
In a way, I think this is telling us viewers Helena is not fitting into the mold of the previous Egans. She's different, rebellious even. This leads us down to Helly's little side quest, finding the directions to the testing elevator hallway, and probably descending down to investigate. However, she's interrupted by James Egan. Why he's on the severed floor is beyond me, but this does provide evidence that the mysterious man behind Mark in episode 1 was probably James Egan, just creeping around, watching people, adding to the Egan-Grashupin story from episode 5. This also infers that he was the one coming up from the testing floor elevator, and that his compound probably has tunnels to and from Lumen. I believe that there is like an older interview with a production designer that said that Dan Erickson claims that these Lumen tunnels run for miles, so yeah, that's how James Egan is probably traveling about.
Because in Dan's head, the writer, this goes for miles underground, like miles. So for the seasons ahead, it's like a city underground. There's so much going on.
Him saying "you tricked me" and Helly's WTF response tells me James knows Helly is trying to sabotage everything that they've been working for. But beyond that, it's really unclear what's going to happen. I mean, James looks fragile, so just one little tiny shove would turn him to dust. Like I mentioned earlier, the finale is clocking in at a solid 75 minutes. It's going to be probably Lumen and Egan focused, with us probably learning what Cold Harbor is, while delivering probably 17 more questions than answers, and I cannot wait. And that is it, another breakdown in the books. Episode 9 was just an appetizer, and now I am ready for the main course. Fingers crossed, quota is met to get me a waffle party. Anyway, feel free to drop all of your thoughts, feelings, theories, and out there ideas on Severance Season 2, Episode 9, and I want to know everyone's craziest theories about what you think is going to happen next week in Episode 10, the Season 2 finale. Okay, bye-bye, everyone!